1-1. That is the Steelers' record now after 2 weeks of this 2021 NFL season. The Pittsburgh Steelers win one that nobody expected them to win on the road against Buffalo, and now they lose one that I don't think anyone expected them really to lose. At home here, the home opener against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders get the victory, and they come to Pittsburgh across the country after a short week with a big Monday Night Football victory over the Steelers' divisional rival in Baltimore. And Derek Carr and company, John Gruden and company get the W. This is a Steelers edition of Pittsburgh Postgame here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. And, of course, Steelers Now. I'm your host, Mike Asti. Just finished talking with some Steelers and Raiders players. Now back up here in my undisclosed location to host this postgame show, I have Mike Vukovcan joining me. And, Mike, I just want to get your instant takeaways before we really unpack this whole game. The Raiders were able to do enough offensively. We talked actually on our show, our talk show mic'd up, that the Raiders have a lot more weapons than some maybe would have thought. We saw Ruggs really be utilized with a big play, then another big play at the end. And despite Derek Carr going down with an injury, having to pick himself up and then get back, they were able to do enough against a banged-up Steelers defense to get this big win for the Raiders. But from a Steelers perspective, they got to certainly feel deflated here. 1-1, and now a loss of a home opener kind of popping the balloon of this rocking crowd here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised, actually. I think too many people – I picked the Raiders to win.
You did, to your credit.
I think too many people underestimated the talent that the Raiders do have. And I know injuries were big, but they were big for both sides. Raiders were without their starting running back, which basically made them a one-dimensional team. They lost – one of their better defensive linemen, Gerald McCoy. So I think the injuries happened. There's no doubt the Steelers were probably worse off. But the reason this was similar to last week's game against the Bills, the only difference was that last week the Steelers offense was able to get going a little bit in the second half and score on every possession except for one. Today, similar defense, similar script. The defense played well. Offense still hasn't. I know I heard all the players talk about they're not in sync yet as far as the Matt Canada offense, and it showed. You can't rely on the defense as much as they've been doing the first two games, especially a defense that is now without Hayden, Watt, Bush, and Alualu, who's going to be gone for the year.
Alu is out for the year. We learned that after the game. TJ Watt did not return. Doesn't appear to be as serious as Alu, but the Steelers team cannot really afford to lose anybody else on the defensive side of the football, nor really at any part of this team. Again, the Steelers lose to the Raiders here in their home opener, 26-17. Pittsburgh now 1-1 on the year. Feel free to chat along with us here. We might get to some of your questions as this is our Steelers post-game show here on PSL and Steelers Now. Also go to Steelers Now for all our post-game coverage. We're going to get some post-game video reaction here from both the Steelers and Raiders side here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, and we already got a game recap over there at Steelers Now. But that kind of is a perfect description of this game. The Steelers were sluggish to open up that game against the Bills as well, but then they really clicked. They really got going despite still not allowing the running game to emerge. We saw flashes, maybe more flashes of Najee in this game. And yes, it's a new offensive system. Matt Canada's different, bringing the caller to the pros, only a QB's coach last year, so didn't really fully get to bring a system in, and his older quarterback learning something new. But how much longer can the Steelers go this basically learn on the fly? Because now they're 1-1. They do have a loss on their schedule. The offense clearly is far from clicking. Deontay Johnson almost looked like he got hurt towards the end of the game. They can't afford any injuries. Eric Ebron already suffering one. The offensive line is not going to get any better, nor is it going to get any healthier, really. How much longer can they afford to be learning? And what needs to change that maybe can flip a switch and get something going? Or is this maybe more dire than some fans thought here and they might putter along?
I don't know if they have any other options. I know Art Rooney gave the mandate at the end of the year last year that they wanted to run the ball more and they're going to be more of an effective of a running team. Today's numbers, 40 passes, 14 runs. That's still a huge slant toward the passing. And I know the running game hasn't been effective. And, it's going to be one of those things. I'm already seeing on Twitter, the people calling Najee Harris, average and all that. It's 2 games into the season.
That is very early, right?
Yeah, very early. And I don't think they have any other choice. They're going to hopefully they can start running the ball more. One thing I saw in the second half that I think would that I'd like to see happen a little bit more is to get Freiermuth more involved in this offense.
Right.
I know
a great offseason, a great camp, a great preseason. A lot of people thought he would emerge this year, especially with Ebron being out, with co-captains at tight end. And no, we haven't really been able to see him fully yet.
Yeah, they started. Ben, I believe he might have had 3 catches today. I know that he had 2 in the second half.
Right.
But, that would be another weapon. There's a lot of pressure on Claypool and Juju Smith to make things happen, and Johnson. It'd be nice to have another guy out there because basically all you're getting out of Juju are the short passes, everything within the line of scrimmage. Claypool, they try to go deep a little bit. Sorry, but he has to come down with that one catch it was deep down the second half. That's a catch that, if you want to be a star in the league, you got to come down and make that catch. But I don't know hopefully just over time, things start to click a little bit. I'm not in panic mode. They're still, if you want to look at it, they're still tied for first place, 1-1.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Cincinnati lost to the Bears. The Ravens play tonight and the Browns won today. So, basically they got a division opponent next week, and it's going to be, I look like the Bengals a lot like I do the Raiders. And I think it could be a tough matchup if they don't get some of these defensive guys, because I think they have a lot of young talent on offense. And so it's definitely going to be a challenge, but it's at home. It's a division opponent, and they have a chance to get back going. But the biggest thing all this week is going to be the health of all these guys that are banged up, especially Deontay Johnson, who they don't know what happened on the last play of the game. He hurt his knee.
The Steelers cannot afford injuries by any means. We do have a couple chatters here. We beat a real contender, one chatter says, in the AFC last week, and then lose to a close one here to the Raiders. The offense looked the same as last year. Well, it will be interesting to me. Steeler fans singing the praises of Matt Canada, finally getting this job, finally get to see more of the Matt Canada offense this year than even last year, where we only saw sprinkles and then didn't see it for several weeks again. He wasn't the coordinator then. Steeler fans not thrilled with Randy Fichtner, didn't like Todd Haley, provided there were points on the board prior to that. When will this fan base turn potentially on Matt Canada? Is it even his fault? And will it need a whole season to administer this offense to this team, which maybe they don't have with Ben now back? I'll also get a chatter here. We always lose to the Raiders. It is very interesting whether they're good or not. Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Tomlin, and the Steelers, and obviously different players over the years, have always struggled against whether there be the Oakland Raiders or now the Las Vegas Raiders, and that's a big win for the Raiders off a short week traveling across the country, getting this win. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here. Ben going 27 for 40. 295, a touchdown, a pick, 2 sacks, a quarterback rating of 87. Some probably would have thought maybe he was worse than that. Some might think that's just right. Some maybe would have thought it sometimes he was better than that. What's your evaluation of Ben so far? Because we know after the win last week, he was rated by some the worst in the league. I don't know if that really made any sense, but certainly didn't have the greatest outing. People are getting high on Ben. Others are getting really low on Ben. This was overall, by the numbers, an average performance that could have been good enough to get you a victory, but the offense certainly didn't explode. What are your thoughts on Ben now through 2 weeks, realistically, on how he's playing?
He's been okay. He's been just okay, but unfortunately in this league, it's a quarterback league. You win with a quarterback for the most part, a good quarterback, a really good quarterback. And to this point this year, Ben has been okay. Okay is not going to get it done for the Steelers. I'm not saying that he's not going to turn things around. But unfortunately for Ben, with his current health situation and his age, he needs an offensive line.
Yeah.
If this offensive line doesn't get better, I don't care who the quarterback is. You put Derek Carr back there. It doesn't matter. If this offensive line doesn't find a way to gel and improve a little bit, which will give Ben time to throw deep so he doesn't have to throw everything short. which will open holes for Najee Harris.
Right.
This thing is all predicated on the offensive line and whether or not it improves. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter. People can, have talk show material and throw Twitter stuff out there about Ben just to reaction. But it's not Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger is good enough to win in this league still. He's good enough to put up numbers in this league. However, he isn't good enough to do it, unfortunately, with a bad offensive line. And right now, his line isn't good enough to get it done.
This is not the Ben Roethlisberger that carried a porous offensive line to a Super Bowl. This is not going to be that Ben Roethlisberger the rest of the year. The hope of Ben is to be like he's been these first couple weeks and be good enough, not great, but good enough, maybe an average QB. But again, as we said, even on our show, if the offensive line does not play better, and they were the weakness coming into the season, they were the question mark coming into the season. If the offensive line is not better, nothing about Ben, nothing about any backup QB, nothing about Najee Harris or any of the tight ends. Matt Canada's offense will be all for naught. It won't matter. Now that will segue. Any hope from your eyes of this offensive line getting better? Zach Banner is supposed to come back in week 4. He'd be the veteran of this group, but he didn't play at all last year. Steelers' offensive line is still mightily banged up. Talking with some fellow media here during halftime, there's even concern now at center of Kendrick Green that maybe he wasn't ready to get thrown right into the fire. Maybe he would have been better to wait under the wings, but that was not a luxury the Steelers could afford him. So is there any hope for this offensive line? And then to flip it, is that the only issue you see with Najee Harris? Obviously, it's very, very early. It's 2 weeks, but 38 yards, an average of 3.8 again. He's yet to get average over 4 per game, or 4 per touch, which is normally that number that you want to see from a top back if you draft in the first round. Is it just him being held back by the O-line as well?
Yeah, totally. I defy somebody to show me a run, more than 1 or 2 runs that Najee Harris, when he gets the ball, that there isn't a defensive lineman or a linebacker penetrating the line and in the back of in the line of scrimmage, in the back of the line of scrimmage. You just can't you can't operate like that. Once in a while, he's going to make a guy miss and he's going to do something on his own, but he needs time to hit a hole, and he's just not getting that. And to answer your first question, there's nothing. Yeah, I feel that they can get better just because of the fact that they're young. It's not as though it's
it's hard to get much worse too, to be
right. True. But it's not an old broken down offensive line where guys are at the end of their career.
Sure.
These guys, you're starting a rookie at center, you're starting a second-year guy at left guard. The left tackle is still up in the air, and you have a right tackle. The whole offensive line is in flux. So on the job experience, unfortunately, it's a tough place to do that, especially when you're having multiple guys trying to do that. But, that's the situation they're in right now, and they're going to have to get better. At least a few of them are going to have to get better. If not, then, this is going to be a long year for this offense, and they're going to hope to, and they're going to have to definitely rely all season on the defense. And, that's not a good recipe for success.
No, that's the 2019 Pittsburgh Steelers, and they did finish a game out of the postseason. They would have got in if there were the 7 spots like now exist. That was with Duck and Mason at QB, not Ben. And Ben, even still, whether he's 1 or 2 in terms of last QBs in the league, no matter how you want to evaluate, these numbers aren't horrendous. It's not like he's throwing 4 or 5 picks a game like he did in the playoff last year. This offense does need to do more. The O-line needs to allow them to do more, but I think you hit the nail on the head. Unlike the Raiders and even the Bills, they tried to catch a couple big plays. Josh Allen missed in terms of timing. If they would have hit those, the Bills would have beat the Steelers. Teams are going to eventually catch 1 or 2 big plays a game, no matter who they're playing against. The Steelers cannot open up or close or do anything in the middle with a big play. The Steelers are not able to get a big play going, and that could be the offensive line. Ben's not getting any time and just having to figure something out so late here. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here on our Steelers post-game show here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, and of course Steelers Now. I do wonder what that laugh out loud is from Mike Cox there in the chat. I did see that thrown in there. I don't know whose comment that was from, but yeah, maybe it's about the offensive line. It can't get much worse. That I guess is really the case. Now, on the other side of the ball for the Steelers, you lose Alualu, which after the whole offseason drama and him now back, and then to go down with that injury in the home opener, crushing for him, but also crushing blow to the Steelers. Their secondary got burned in this game. Maybe that's isolated with Ruggs and company, but it also was supposed to be a weakness entering the season. TJ Watt goes down. We'll learn more about that as the week goes by. Doesn't appear to be as serious as Alualu. Is this defense good enough as we stand to carry this team? And what did you notice from the defensive side of the football on what they did well and then what they didn't? Because the Raiders did hang points in this game.
Yeah, if healthy, this defense is good enough to win games for them. There's no question about that. But the question is, are you going to be healthy? How long?
Right.
You got three guys with groin injuries: Bush, Hayden, and now T.J. Watt. You take those three guys out. It was amazing that they were able to do what they did. I give Keith Butler credit. I think they came up with a pretty good game plan. Carr did throw for a lot of yards, but his big weapon, Darren Waller, we were talking about him all week. They took him out of the game virtually. Unfortunately, on that last or next to last drive, he got him for a big play.
Right.
But there's give and take with that. When you have Minka basically spying on Waller the whole game, that's leaving other guys open, and that's how they got burnt the one touchdown pass to Ruggs.
Right.
Fitzpatrick was making sure the ball wasn't going toward Waller on a deep out. Once he realized that, he tried to get back to Ruggs, and with a guy with that type of speed, once he gets a couple of steps on you, it's over.
His speed is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. So
really,
that's the chance you take. That's the you roll the dice when you play like that. And for 3.5 quarters, they did pretty well. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it for a whole 4 quarters. But I thought defensively, once again, they played another good game. I did. I think the defensive line played well. Linebacker, I have no complaints about anything that happened on the defense. They put some pressure, despite not having some of their guys up there. And I don't even know how they did it with the defensive line. They were already down a guy, and then you lose that on a day like this with the heat. They were shuttling guys in and out. So there's no doubt going to be some roster moves made by the Steelers this week to try to get some, guys up on the 53, probably activate some guys from the practice squad. But defensively, I give them another, I give them a B+. Okay. Good enough performance to win.
I think a good enough performance by the Steelers defense. The one thing the Steelers did not do in this game, that when the offense is not clicking, and not to say they should have to do this, but this is how they got so close to the playoffs 2 years ago without a legit quarterback, and they were a legit starting quarterback at that point, is get takeaways. Derek Carr, almost 400 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. A great game from Derek Carr, arguably played better in this game than he even did against Baltimore in their big Monday Night Football victory. This Steelers defense, and really any defense in this day and age in the NFL, if your offense is not going to score 20-plus points for you, if the offense is going to start sluggish, and if you are learning a new offense and you have a weak offensive line who can't let you do too much, you do need some takeaways to take away from the opponent. It's sometimes just luck. Sometimes it wasn't there, but not having takeaways is a difference than that Buffalo game.
Yeah. The difference though is, in theory, you're right. However, the Raiders, aside from that last drive where they were just killing time, the last 2 drives where they were killing time, they ran the ball 10 times for the whole game, for 3.5 quarters. And in their passing game.
Yeah. Barmer 13 carries, and then Carr had 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Their passing game was everything underneath.
Right.
So the guys just didn't have time really to get to the quarterback. And when
That's
they
true.
did, Derek, TJ Watt almost had one in the first half. The Raider, he stripped Carr, and the Raiders recovered it. But I just think the Raiders, the patterns they were running didn't lend itself for the Steelers defensive guys to get after the quarterback, or even to make plays in the secondary. The only criticism I give, I'm not even going to say a criticism, but they didn't get it done, was on that last drive, they had a chance after the Steelers kicked the 50-some yard, 55, 56-yard field goal.
Right.
They kicked it off, and the defense had a chance to hold them 3 and out, get the offense to get the ball back. And they couldn't, they weren't able to do that. Tough situation, I realize that, but great defenses, championship defenses, when they need that last stop, hold an offense out to 3 and out, they do that. The Steelers, unfortunately, their defense today, they had a chance to bail their offense out a little bit and get them the ball back, but Derek Carr was just too good. And I guess it's about Derek Carr,
right?
817 yards in his first 2 games. That's the most in Raiders history over a 2-game span. So I just don't think people are giving this Raiders team enough credit.
Could be,
for the talent that they do have. They're not. I don't think they're great defensively. I think they're going to get they're going to get exposed defensively, but offensively, when Jacobs is back, I think this offense can put up points with the best of them. And, I think you're seeing that so far out of Derek Carr.
And not only that, this Raiders team is confident. I went to that Raiders press conference as well, and Derek Carr even said, there's a different vibe around here. There's more confidence around here. We're 2-0. We're not going to stop. Right after the victory, he got everyone together and said, you can celebrate on the plane, but at the end of it, that's the end of celebrating. He actually said in past years, we would have celebrated all week long. He also made some comments that I felt like he might have been alluding to, maybe Antonio Brown or some others, talking about how everyone in the locker room is all bought in, and even great players of the past that were in here, you sometimes would be around them and it would just be funky. You wouldn't get excited about going to work. Everyone loves being around everybody. So it does feel like there's a special vibe around the Raiders, where when you start 2-0 after these 2 big wins, I am sure if the Raiders do not make the playoff, this is a disappointing year. They got to get in. They haven't been there since 2016. So the Steelers were favored. It's a home game. You don't want to lose it, but this is not a horrendous Raiders team by any means. No.
Yeah, and a couple other things I saw with the Raiders. It's the first time ever that they started 0-2 or started 2-0 when they were underdogs in both games.
Right.
And also the first time they're 2-0 when they beat 2 teams that were in the playoffs the previous season.
Yeah.
Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. So,
and off a short week, Monday Night Football to Sunday, cross country too, just history-wise, that doesn't work geographically speaking usually in the NFL. So again, this isn't Raiders post-game, but a big win for the Raiders. Hats off to them. It's not that embarrassing for the Steelers. This is not like they lost the worst team in football. This is a good Raiders team that will probably be in the playoffs. It just, from a Steelers perspective, you do feel a little deflated after the win over Buffalo to win that game on the road, even though no one thought they'd win that, and then lose this. But again, a good Raiders team, to say the very, very least here. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here on Steelers postgame here on PSL and Steelers Now. Again, head over to the channel, as well as head over to SteelersNow.com for all our postgame coverage. Now, Mike, before we get into previewing a little bit of the Steelers game, also sticking home here against the Bengals coming up, and then they travel to Green Bay. It does get a little tougher, although who knows about the Packers and some other teams. The schedule changes, and whether it's difficult or not as the year progresses, not many thought Green Bay will get destroyed in week 1 the way they did. Any decision-making criticism for Mike Tomlin throughout this game? Some in the press box thought maybe he kind of played a little conservative towards the end. Maybe you go for it on the 4th and 1 towards the end. He's brought up a lot in the past. Don't live in your fears. Last week, he was much more aggressive. It led to a victory. It did appear more conservative football this week. And again, the Raiders could be a playoff team, but he will hear it all week long that it's another example of you win against the team you weren't supposed to beat, and then you lose a game at home that you are favored in, which factually is true, even if the Raiders end up better than some would have thought.
I know I see the criticism about the 4th and 1 call, and I go both ways on that. I really do. I come back to, despite all that, despite punting and everything else, the Steelers defense had a chance. It was on the Steelers defense. Down by 6, they hold the Raiders to 3 and out. The Steelers get the ball back with a couple minutes left with a chance to win it. Right. So I know people are going to focus on the 4th and 1, but the bottom line is the defense didn't get a hold when they needed to, and that's why they lost. So I'm not going to I think that's one of the few things that you can criticize Mike Tomlin for in that game. But I don't even criticize him for that. I just think the Raiders, for the 4 quarters, they were a better team, and there's no doubt. Injuries aren't an excuse, but it's a reality. The Steelers were without 4 key guys on their defense, which obviously played a part in today's game.
Yeah, and to answer the chatter there, I don't personally know about Deontay just yet, mostly because I'm hosting this post-game show. Head over to Steelers Now for any of that information. Alan Saunders will give you updates there. Deontay did look like he might have got hurt at the end of this game. Obviously, that would be a catastrophic blow to the Steelers if he misses any time. He's, for me, that guy that could emerge as the number 1, and Ben kind of uses him that way. Had a great game going for a while when they did move offensively. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti, and honestly, on your Tomlin point, I would rather see a coach be more aggressive. Just even watching it's more entertaining. I do think coaches that win championships get a little bit more aggressive, sometimes especially when you're trailing in a game. It looks like you're going to lose anyway. Why not go for it and trust your team? However, it's certainly not why they lost this game. So to make that clear, it's going to be a talking point all week long. I'm sure the talk shows, we're going to do the same. We're going to have to bring it up all week long. It's going to be brought up all week long. It is a little hypocritical with him living in your fears comment, where he seems to every now and then live in his fears. And maybe he didn't want to rely on the defense so much. You're talking about, well, go ahead and give it to the defense. That's true. Although this defense has been banged up, it wasn't having its best of days, at least in terms of moving the football. The Raiders able to move the football. So maybe that was a concern as well. That's going to be brought up. It is something that I didn't necessarily agree with the call initially, but that's not in any way why they lost this game. The Steelers got outplayed in this game. The offense wasn't clicking enough. The Raiders had a great, the offense didn't do enough. The defense did do enough, and the Raiders played one hell of a game. So give the Raiders credit. They're probably a playoff team. Derek Carr and the Raiders played a great game. I don't know if it's Gruden beating Tomlin as much as the Raiders beat the Steelers. They legitimately won. One play did not decide this game. The Raiders had this pretty much secured most of the way through, and if they didn't win, it would have been a quote-unquote stolen victory for the Steelers if that did occur. Now, flipping things to next week, because to quote a wise man, on to Cincinnati. That is going to be the case now for the Steelers here. They're 1-1. They're looking to get back above 500. They have a divisional matchup. It is a younger quarterback, even though Burrow is still playing very well, picking up where he left off last week. This is a Bengals team that has expectations this year, but some believe maybe they're just not ready yet. They've already suffered an upset loss. What do the Steelers need to do against the Bengals, and how do you see that game shaking out as just an instant reaction after the Steelers loss to the Raiders?
Well, Steelers need to get TJ Watt healthy. That's number one, because we talk here in Pittsburgh about the Steelers having a bad offensive line. That's the same case with the Bengals. It's almost a mirror image of each other. Today, Joe Burrow was sacked 4 times, threw 3 interceptions. The guy's under constant pressure. He's another one of these guys that I feel bad for, because I think if he ever, had a good system to work behind as far as an offensive line, he could be a really good quarterback. I don't know that he's going to ever have that with Cincinnati, but if he does have time, he has really, really good weapons with Mixon, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, first-round pick Jamar Chase from LSU this year. He has some players that him and Chase are starting to get back to their LSU days as far as hooking up. He had another touchdown today. Higgins had a touchdown. Tyler Boyd had 7 catches, close to 80 yards. He has weapons. The question is, does he have time? The Steelers pass rush, which historically has been able to get after Bengal quarterbacks, if they're able to do that, I see another low-scoring game. Quarterbacks under pressure. Who's going to make the big plays? But the storyline all week is going to be the Steelers need to get these guys back defensively. And this could be a game where Najee Harris has his breakout game. I think the Steelers I'm not impressed with the Bengals' run defense.
Right.
And so this could be a game where maybe the Steelers stick to the run a little bit more and try to break that against the Bengals, because I think they're susceptible.
Yeah, and you hate to say this too in week 3. obviously. It is still very early in the season. The Steelers do need to get healthy. Health has now been an issue, although no one's going to feel sorry for them. Look at what the Ravens are dealing with. They've suffered a loss already, and they're clearly banged up, and they could blame all the injuries on that loss to the Raiders last week as well. But it's a borderline must-win game. It is a divisional game. It's a conference game. It is your first inside the AFC North, so it's not like it would be a situation where you can't win the division if you don't win it. Again, it's week 3. It's the first divisional game, but you don't want to go down 1-2. You do feel like Burrow is a young quarterback. Normally the Steelers feast on rookie or sophomore quarterbacks. Burrow only playing half of last year, so far this year playing well, but still vulnerable to the Steelers pass rush, vulnerable to mistakes from Minka and company. So even if they don't get fully healthy, you would figure this is a solid matchup for Pittsburgh defensively to get some takeaways like they didn't get against the Raiders, potentially have Najee Harris be able to explode and make up for a weak offensive line, because he talked about all offseason, I can make up for any holes that aren't there. This is good on good. This is the NFL. You're not really going to do that no matter who you are. So maybe this will be an easier day at the office for the O-line that can emerge him as well. Mike, as we close up shop here in this postgame show, any final thoughts? I mean, obviously we're going to do shows all week. People are going to be having their reactions change all week long. This is an instant reaction show, so our reactions and opinions may change as the week goes on. But right now, any final thoughts and any final takeaways on this postgame show after the Steelers move to 1-1 and do lose the home opener 26-17 to the Raiders?
No, I think they're in okay position. I don't know that anyone would have pegged at the beginning of the season for the Steelers to start out 2-0 with who they were playing. I do agree with you. This is you don't want to get into an early losing streak at the beginning of the season and lose to the Bengals. You want to win those division games. And, it's going to be checking the standings every week. The Browns play next week against the Bears. So they're going to be favored definitely in that game. And the Ravens play the Lions, and they should obviously have win there. So the Steelers, need to win probably to keep pace with the contenders in their division. So We'll see. Way too early to panic about anything. I'm not a panicker at the beginning of the season. Not at the beginning of this, not 3 games into the season. I'm not worried about anything. I think the Steelers need to get healthy. They get healthy, they'll be okay.
Again, it is only 2 weeks into the season. It is way too early to press any panic button. It is not like the Steelers are 0-2. They do have a victory. Maybe at that point they were ahead of the apple cart because people didn't think they could beat the Bills on the road. They do lose this game. They do lose a home game. You don't want to lose a home game inside the conference. But this is a good Raiders team. I think a Raiders team that's going to be in the postseason, so it's not like it's that bad of a loss. The Steelers will have a chance to make up ground and keep things moving and get back on the right track in a winnable matchup, a good matchup, a team they normally do beat in the Cincinnati Bengals, also back home. So, again, a big win for the Raiders. Not that bad of a loss, but a loss for the Steelers. A lot to still improve upon. Really questions around the offensive line, though, for me. That is my final takeaway. As much as everything we're saying is true and they can still pick it up against the Bengals, maybe that'll be how they can get the victory. It's not the end of the world through 2 weeks. It wasn't that horrendously bad, and the Raiders are going to be a good team. If the offensive line is not better, and it was really bad in this game against Vegas, none of this matters. The Steelers cannot have any chances of doing anything this year. They have no hope if this offensive line does not get better, either healthier or just flat out better. And if it cannot do either one of those 2 things, nothing else matters. Then the running back, the team, the matchup, what everyone else is doing, none of it will matter. The O-line has to be better, and the O-line has been pretty bad to this point. That's more dire. That's the panic button more than the 1-1 record or anything else with the offense. For Mike Vukovcan, for all of us at Pittsburgh Sports Live, and of course Steelers Now. Again, head over to Steelers Now for the rest of our post-game coverage and Pittsburgh Sports Live for any of our video reaction that'll matriculate from this channel today and then onward throughout the week as well. He's Mike Vukovcan. I'm Mike Asti. Steelers Now 1-1 as they lose the home opener.